everybody. Welcome back to a very special bonus episode of This Is My Bourbon Podcast. I'm your host, Perry, and with me this week on this bonus episode is an interview that I did with Fred Minnick, all about the festivals that he has coming up in the month of September, Hometown Rising, Bourbon and Beyond, and Louder Than Life. Some very, very cool and new stuff is happening with those festivals, and I wanted to take some time to talk to Fred about what it is that he has going on with them. There's not much more I can tell you about it other than letting the interview speak for itself. So without further ado, take it away, Fred and Perry. So I'm finally getting to sit down again with one of my favorite people to talk to for this show, and not just for the show, but in general, Mr. Fred Minnick. Fred, welcome back to the show, man.
Perry, good to be back. Thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely. It's a little bit of a rainy Friday morning, but it's been a while since we've been able to sit down and chat. We're not drinking bourbon. We're drinking coffee this morning.
Nice, hot, roasted Java.
Yeah, but I've got the iced coffee, which you made fun of me for. Also, you stiffed me on the...
That is true.
on the coffee this morning. Just kidding.
I brought... I didn't bring my wallet, and I did the old classic, reached in my pockets. Oh, I left my wallet in the car. Can you get this?
Can you cover this?
Actually, times are tough.
Are they?
I appreciate you getting me some coffee.
Look, man, surrounded by all the whiskey that you've got in here, I can't imagine that times are too tough.
Well, there's no caffeine in the whiskey, so, you know.
Oh, it's that kind of tough. I got you now. So I typically like to kind of start the show off by asking people that are on, what have you been drinking recently? Or tasting, in your case.
You know, last night I was knee-deep in a bottle of New Riff. And I just keep tasting that whiskey and keep tasting it, and I'm just blown away by how good that distillery is.
I agree.
And it's just like, you know, and I think it's, you know, for what I do, so I review bourbons, and there's my tasting regimen, and then there's what I actually drink, you know.
Sure.
And I think I would like to probably, you know, keep a lot of those a secret, but I'll be happy to say that I do drink. I've been drinking New Riff pretty regularly.
Yeah.
That whiskey, it just hits the sweet spot for me.
I've been enjoying a couple of single barrel picks.
Yeah.
From them too. That kind of seems to be where they shine for me.
Yeah, the single barrel picks are great.
And they seem to kind of touch a bunch of different sides of the spectrum. Like, it's never like you're going to get a New Riff pick and it just tastes like a caramel bomb or just an oak bomb. It seems like they're very varied.
Yeah.
In what they're actually producing.
Yeah, I think and I think that's what's fascinating to me about them is that I've not been able to dial into their profile. Like most distilleries, I'm able to dial into their profile pretty quickly. Even the single barrels will have kind of like a particular note or like kind of a mouthfeel.
Yeah.
And New Riff doesn't have that. So that's why they are so fascinating to me, and why I probably keep drinking their bottles is because I want to see like if I can figure out, you know, their style, and I haven't yet.
How have you found their rye?
Their rye is excellent. I've always thought I think rye is more forgiving at a younger age than bourbon, and you know, their ryes definitely do not taste like a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old, you know, depending what years you have. But I've found them to be quite good, even complex.
I think what's interesting about that too, just is the fact that they're also 95.5 ryes. And I feel like there's something to be said about the fact that at that age, at that young age, that high rye mash bill.
Yeah, and they worked with Larry Ebersol, of course, the former master distiller at the former Seagram's plant that became known as LDI and then later MGP. And so that was kind of, I'd say, his influence, but also, you know, that's kind of the trend. You know, for a long time, that was the trend of what people wanted. But theirs do not have that kind of a dill pickle note in it,
right?
That turns a lot of people away. That you'll find in like Bullet Rye, which is made at the Lawrenceburg, Indiana distillery. So I'd say you're looking at a rye that is extremely palatable for those who are interested in rye, and even if you don't like that high rye profile.
I seem to remember you sharing a photo a while back of a bottle of Redemption Rye that you had found in your basement or something.
Yeah, I find a lot of weird shit. I was cleaning my car out a while back, and I found this bottle. It was like under the seat, and there was like potato chips around. I'm like, you're like, I mean, I have 2 kids, and it's just like, even if I try to clean the damn thing all the time, my 5-year-old would somehow sneak a Pop-Tart in, and it would melt against the floor or something. But anyway, so I was cleaning the car out, and I found this this bottle from Boston Harbor, a small distillery in the Boston area, of course, and it was their single malt, and I was like, what the hell? I mean, I took it with me on a fishing trip, and I tasted it, and I was like, son of a bitch, this is good. And then I tasted I got another bottle. I had another bottle in the office or something, then I tasted it, and I was like, this isn't as good as what was in my car. So I was like, maybe, this under the seat aging technique, it ameliorates these younger single malts. I mean,
I think you're onto something here. No,
absolutely illegal if you open it. But everybody out there, try the experiment. Grab a bottle that you don't think is any good, stick it in your floorboard, leave it in there for what I think was about 6 months.
Make sure that there's a Pop-Tart that's melted right next to it.
Yeah, you want a Pop-Tart and maybe a potato chip by there too, just in case. Those. The marriage, the combo of the whiskey and the Pop-Tart aromatics is where it's at.
So what we are actually here to talk about today, though, is all of these awesome festivals.
Yeah.
That you have coming up.
Absolutely.
I guess we'll start with the newest one, though. Hometown Rising.
Yeah, so I'm the curator for Danny Wimmer Presents, which is a national independent music promoter. Started by Danny Wimmer, who is a longtime record executive and manager. He, some of the bands he managed was like Puddle of Mud, and his partner Danny Hayes managed Linkin Park, for example. So they're very tied into the music industry. So everyone's always like, "How did you get these big acts?" I was like, "Well, the actual stars behind these festivals are Danny Wimmer and Danny Hayes.
Sure.
They're like icons in the music industry." And the fact that they are an independent, very strong promoter nationally in a time that everything is basically conglomerates is a testament to how good they are. And so I like to think of Danny Wimmer as kind of like a mad scientist. And he brought me in about 3 years ago to start adding like cool bourbon elements to things. And that was the first festival that we had together was Bourbon and Beyond. And Bourbon and Beyond, of course, is now, its 3rd year in. Last year we got rained out, unfortunately. We've got a new site this year, very strong site at the fairgrounds. And it is, it's very, very exciting to see, what we've accomplished. He's always wanted to do a country show. And country makes a lot of sense here in Louisville. We're right by Nashville. Everyone here has their pickup trucks and the 2 windows down, blasting George Strait or Garth Brooks or someone. And so he put together what I believe and what many say is the best country lineup festival of the entire year. So we have Tim McGraw on Little Big Town, Dwight Yoakam, Trace Adkins. That's the first day with a lot of other great names.
Yeah.
And then on Sunday, you've got, so that's Sunday, September 15th, you got Luke Bryan, Keith Urban, Brett Young, Jake Goins, and then Bret Michaels, which I think a lot of people don't realize that he does country. But
I didn't really know that.
Yeah, so Bret Michaels, who is, a rocker in his own right, is a countryman now. And this is basically the music lineup on this. If you're a country fan, you're not going to find anything better. But I also have a little bourbon component. So I've got some stars on stage with me, some of the country stars on stage with me.
That's really cool.
Where I'm going to taste whiskey with them, and we're gonna educate them about it, and then we're gonna have some nice kind of bourbon 101 and bourbon histories and everything. It's gonna be great. And then we've also got like a dance floor. Country music
that's cool.
Is all into like the dancing.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Like the line dancing and two-stepping. So you might see me out there trying to, tripping over myself, bebopping or whatever. But this is, to me, this festival is a dream come true if you are a huge country music fan.
So, how does you kind of touched on it a little bit. How has the bourbon curating side of this differed from Bourbon and Beyond? Because you're neck deep with Bourbon and Beyond.
Yeah. Because
the bourbon aspect is the star of the show.
Yeah, so what you'll see is the big bourbon bar will be there. Some distillers only wanted to be at Bourbon and Beyond. Some wanted to be at all three festivals. And the reason why is not actually, it's not actually for any reason other than they don't know if they can supply it. Like,
sure.
I mean, there will be some brands will like go through 60 cases in a weekend, which for a small brand, that could be their entire allocation for Louisville in for a quarter. So this. Even though these are festivals, we pour and people are drinking responsibly, more bourbon here, than anywhere else from a festival perspective. And so the activations of like the barbecue and bourbon, the bourbon tiki bar, the big bourbon bar, those will all still be there. What will not be at Bourbon or at Hometown Rising that will be at Bourbon and Beyond is the Kentucky Gold bourbon stage, and that's where we have like full blown seminars. The seminar stuff for Hometown Rising will actually take place in the big bourbon bar.
Okay, still very cool though.
Yeah.
I first, of course, heard about Hometown Rising last year during the Bourbon and Beyond press event, and I've been excited about it since you all announced it. And
You're coming, right?
Oh yeah, I'll be
Great.
there both days. I'm really looking forward to it. So, on that note, though, what I think is our favorite event,
Baby,
Bourbon and Beyond.
Mm-hmm.
This is a stacked lineup that you guys have this year.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about iconic musicians, for me, it starts with Creedence Clearwater Revival, John Fogerty. We have him on the first day, Friday, September 20th. Then you got Led Zeppelin, like the greatest band of all time, Led Zeppelin. And we have Robert Plant on Saturday. And oh, by the way, on Friday, we also have the Foo Fighters. On Sunday, Zach Brown Band and ZZ Top.
That is insane.
So you gotta
insane.
I'm going to be a sharp-dressed man while I'm watching them. I'll be there in my ascot and suit.
Cheap sunglasses?
I only have cheap sunglasses.
Me too.
Yeah.
I can't keep up with sunglasses. So.
I've lost more pairs of Oakleys. I've probably... From the time when I was playing baseball, it's like everyone had to wear Oakleys, and I lost them like every freaking day, so I just gave up.
Yeah.
I'm sure my eyes are, being punished for it, but whatever. But so Bourbon and Beyond, this is the creme de la creme of lineups for the music fan of Americana. It's got everyone in there. Hall & Oates. Hall & Oates is like,
oh my gosh,
they're incredible. There are two musicians that are on this lineup that to me are like ultra rising stars, and in 20 years, they're going to be as big as like the Foo Fighters and Zac Brown band. And that is Grace Potter.
Yes.
Grace Potter
Absolutely.
is just climbing the charts. She has an amazing voice. Her cover of White Rabbit sent chills down my spine. And then you've got Willie Nelson's boy, Lucas Nelson, and The Promise of Real. Lucas Nelson is an amazing guitar player, and he's also got his father's voice, but with more, that's deeper, and you can feel it more. And like when he's singing and playing the guitar, I feel it, man.
That's awesome.
And so I love his music. I think he's someone that he's currently in his dad's shadow. I mean, for God's sake, his dad's Willie Nelson, but I think this festival will be one of the moments where he starts stepping out of his shadow and people start seeing him for who he is.
So between those two and really everybody else who's on the lineup, who's the dark horse this year? Who is your must-see?
So in addition to those two, I think Leon Bridges on Sunday is incredible.
He might be who I'm most excited about.
Sunday. Yeah, he is. He's got soul. He's got, the writing is incredible. But, so Robert Plant, obviously, but there's a band in here that I have a very, very emotional, personal connection to, and that's Live. Live is they're on September 20th. And they were during, so I grew up in Oklahoma. And the Oklahoma City bombing had a huge impact on my life and everyone around me. And that happened in April 19th, 1995. Mm-hmm. And there was a radio station there that took a live song and chopped in all of the sounds and scenes of everything of the that was happening around the bombing. Yeah. And that is just like one of those things that's implanted in my brain that kind of like takes me back to when I had when my innocence was basically taken. That was that moment. And so Live has a very personal connection to me. But all these bands are incredible. Del McCoury is one. What day is he on? Let's see.
I just saw. Oh, he's on Saturday.
He's on Saturday. Del McCoury, to me, if you're a blues musician, or if you like the bluegrass, or if you like the blues, I just like that. I like his sound, and he's a classic bluegrass musician who actually picked with the Bill Monroe. So,
wow,
just so many great bands and musicians.
Yeah, just kind of glancing over it, Benso Lee is going to be there. Great local artist.
Yeah,
Kurt Vile is going to be on Sunday. I think Kurt Vile is one of those kind of unsung heroes right now. But Joan Jett and the Blackhearts?
Yeah.
We haven't even talked about the fact that Joan Jett's going to be playing at Bourbon and Beyond.
Well, it's amazing, but yeah, it's kind of skipped over that. But Cherry Bomb, baby. Yeah, she's iconic. There's another podcast that does like metal or does like rock and roll and music, and they have polls every week on Instagram of like who was the best here. That Joan Jett has got a lot of fans out there in the whiskey community. I think she made it to like the final 8 for like the best.
Oh my gosh, that's
like
awesome.
lead singer.
That's really cool. Yeah. Blackberry Smoke, I've actually seen before. I saw them open for Gary Clark Jr. a few years back.
Blackberry Smoke is a band that everybody knows, and they've got like one or two like really ultra big hits like This Town. Yeah, but I think people are always surprised to hear their other music. And when it comes to like what becomes a hit, I'm always kind of surprised. Like I just you think you hear something, you really like it, and it's like it doesn't take off.
Yeah.
Like this thing going on with Old Town Road, Lil Nas. Like I heard that, and I was like, this is good, but I would have never predicted this. But my 5-year-old's running around singing Old Town Road, and I've heard like 8-year-olds singing. I was like, that's where it's coming from.
Yeah.
It's like that song connected with like kids.
Yeah,
and that's a win.
I can't hear that song one more time. I cannot do it. It's
that guy is a great story though.
I think he's a fantastic person. I love.
Yeah.
He's so funny too, but I can't hear that song again.
Someone like that, like the big thing moving forward for a person with that kind of a hit is like, what's next, and I as a human being, I'm like, I hope he crushes it.
Well, I'll tell you what's next is you get new riff picks named after songs that you do. That's from the Nashville Bourbon Society.
Oh, I love it. Old Town Road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty great.
For those who can't see, obviously no one can see this. There's no video in here. Perry just gave me a single barrel pick from New Riff, which we were just talking about, and it's got signed Perry R. 1 of 1, and there's a little sticker, and there's this whole thing from in the bourbon movement where people like to do stickers on bottles, and this has Old Town Road with a Nashville backdrop to it. So very coincidental that he had that and we were talking about Old Town Road.
Yeah, it's a good bottle. We don't try anything today, or if we do try anything today.
Yeah, I can't taste anything today because I have to get on the road here in a bit. And
gotta be responsible.
This is one of the things about being a professional whiskey person is like I do not mess around with that, and I've been doing this for almost 15 years, and I've seen a lot of people come and go, and this is not an industry that is forgiving if you get yourself in trouble.
Yeah.
And also people need to like realize too, like, you got to be in a good place to taste. You can't just taste all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, speaking of tasting, let's talk about the bourbon lineup for Bourbon and Beyond this year.
Yeah, so this has what's on here is the actual big bourbon bar. So this is what's going to be served in the big bourbon bar. Now there's more bourbon throughout the facility,
right,
or throughout the festival grounds. But the big bourbon bar is basically bigger than a football field, one long bar. Everyone's got like 2 cocktails, and this is the heartbeat of the festival. Yeah. This is where everyone goes to have a drink. And I remember the first year, Eddie Vedder was playing, and people were going back to the big bourbon bar to get more whiskey to go back to watch Eddie Vedder. And somebody tweeted like, "Never in my life would I think I would see people leaving Eddie Vedder's like acoustic performance for bourbon.
Go get bourbon."
But that is, I mean, it's wild. But bourbon is the star here, and so yeah, it's the way it is. But so we have the big bourbon bar. We got things like speakeasies throughout, and we've got my bar, the Fred Minnick Mini Bar, where you will be able to find the craft bourbons that I have personally selected to be in there. So we have New Riff Bluegrass Distillers from Lexington, and MB Roland from Western Kentucky. In addition to that, you'll be able to get the barrel picks that we did with Kroger, and we have, I think, 15 barrels that we selected from from various distillers.
That's up from a lot, or up a lot from last year.
Well,
right?
let me tell you about Kroger. Kroger.
Tell me about Kroger, Fred.
Kroger is our retail partner for Bourbon and Beyond. Actually, all 3 festivals. And they were like, "Hey, can we sell these barrel picks?" And we're like, "Yeah, absolutely." And Chris Blandford is his name. I love him. And he's like, "Hey, can we do this? Can we do this? Can we do this? Can we?" I was like looking at the list. I was like, "Chris, we're like up to 15 or 60 now." He's like, "I know. Do you think we should add some more?" I'm like, "Chris, I mean, I was like, we can't, but we gotta." maybe slow down for a minute, you know? And so we get all caught up in this, and obviously the bourbon distillers love this. You know, this is something they get very excited about too, because it's like they get to show off the best stuff, or at least what we think is their best stuff. Anyway, the frustrating part to me is like we pick it, and then you have to wait like 3 friggin' months. You know?
Oh yeah.
And it's like that process has got to change. Like I really mean that. Like if there's any distillers out there listening, you got to figure this out, because it is not customer friendly experience.
Well, no, and I mean,
it takes way too long.
You're kind of getting a different product at the end of it than what you.
And this is where Jack Daniel's does it so much better.
Really?
So we picked a couple Jack Daniel's barrels too. They have them already bottled. So they will actually dump the barrels. Now it takes a little bit out of the romance. You're pulling out the whiskey from the barrel, and if you've never done a barrel pick, that's a big deal. But they already have them bottled. Everything's ready to go, and it's really, to me, that is way more efficient. But also Jack Daniel's, that brand, it is obviously the category leader in not just American whiskey, but all whiskey.
Yeah, absolutely.
But they think of things to improve efficiency all the time. Like they're really, really good at that at Jack Daniel's.
Yeah. What I was getting at though is that you pick the whiskey, and then it essentially sits in the barrel.
Absolutely.
For 3 months, so you're not getting the same single barrel product.
No.
Essentially that you picked originally.
There's change happening to it unless it was dumped and tanked. And you may get, who knows, maybe during that process there was a good flow of oxygen that came into that barrel and completely changing it. Yep. And like you get new oxygen entered to it. Or maybe, Johnny, who you brought with you on the bourbon barrel selection thing, was chewing some big cinnamon red and flicked it off, and it happened to dribble it in through the bunghole. And then you got Johnny's big cinnamon red flavoring up your whiskey, So, I mean, who knows? I mean, I'm not, that's probably never happened.
I hope not, man.
But,
I hope not.
But, well, you are looking at some changes to it.
Yeah.
And it is, it is what it is. I mean, those are big, clunky barrels, things. There's a huge demand for them. The distillers are like, well, you know what? We have so much demand. Everybody wants everything. Everybody wants everything all the time. And if it's good, there's a long line out the door.
Sure.
I mean, if it sucks, no one's knocking on the door.
Yeah.
So that's the story.
Another one that seems to really get it right, though, is Jim Beam with their Knob Creek picks. I've been there before where they, you pick it and they dump it and they go ahead and bottle it for you.
Yeah, they did something smart where they built an entire facility specifically for this.
Yeah. Yep.
So they did it right. But you're also, when it comes to the Knob Creek stuff, you don't see the demand on it. Like people don't get all batshit crazy over a barrel pick on it. I mean, people like it. I personally think it's fantastic, but you don't really see that same level of enthusiasm, and I don't really understand why.
I don't either. I mean, right now we're seeing just a saturation of 13, 14, 15-year-old single barrels hitting the market. Sure, it's slowing down a little bit and getting closer to the 9 years, but for $45 to $50 for a 15-year-old bourbon, at 120 proof. I mean, that is, it's wild to me that more people don't buy into that.
Yeah, I don't know if that gets caught into the negative feelings people have toward Beam, which is, prominent. There's also something to say about the $45 thing is not It doesn't really. If you're someone that's not into bourbon, that's not a price that gets you to thinking it's really, really fancy or something.
Sure.
But I don't know. It's to me, Knob Creek is an underrated product, and there's plenty of it.
For people though out of the know, do you see them still associating Knob Creek, not Buffalo Trace, Knob Creek with Jim Beam? Because I don't.
No one knows. No one knows.
Yeah, because I didn't think that the brand.
Yeah, they've got its
association was there.
You have to look at it. No, but people in the know, which is let's face it, like the people who we're in the circles with. They're they're following bourbon like you would a sports team, and that genre has had a negative opinion on Beam since they raised the price on Booker's.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's also, you won't see a lot of people admit it, but there's like this weird xenophobia to the fact they're owned by the Japanese. That's always bothered me, but you see that a little bit. When the fact is they don't have that same level of xenophobia for like Blanton's or Four Roses, but they have applied it to Beam, which is now owned by Suntory, a Japanese company. But so I think I think a lot of the ridicule Beam gets is about to pass over because it's shifting over to Heaven Hill now.
I'm not going to disagree with you.
Yeah. So right now Heaven Hill's in the middle of like they're increasing some prices and they've been doing some stuff that has really rubbed people the wrong way. And you know what? I think it's hard to run a spirits company where your core brands have been built on value, and you're looking at your portfolio, you're looking at your competition, and you're like, how can we make more money? And the obvious thing is like the demand is there, let's increase prices. And studies show that when you increase prices, you actually help the sales. Like people will buy more. But I think what we have in our little niche of a bourbon community is that you're starting to see people feel like bourbon is leaving the ones who brought them to the dance. And that is dangerous. That is dangerous because I have been in meetings. I have been in covering things where I heard them talking about we need to focus on the people we don't have. And so, like, for example, a major company is discontinuing their efforts in their marketing and trade efforts into like things that are doing the same, getting the same customers every year.
Right.
They're trying to go after the Vogue, the people who read Vogue, or Time magazine. So they're trying to go after these broader audiences, and that's very dangerous to me as a businessman because this is not, half the country still doesn't drink.
Sure.
And I believe in the growing the niche versus ignoring the niche.
So when you look at not just the United States as one of the bourbon markets, you look at how it's expanded internationally too. Does that still kind of affect your view of how the market is going right now? Because it kind of sounds like what you're talking about is we're on the downswing from the boom.
I don't think we're so internationally the tariffs have been very damaging to brands like the distributors in Europe won't even talk to smaller distillers now. Jack Daniel's has came out and said they're losing $125 million a year on the tariff. So you're looking at some very some very possible signs, and you've also had some things that have kind of damaged consumer confidence. The Jim Beam warehouse fire, for example, which was it was a freak of nature. It was a lightning strike that caused it. You've had the barrel collapses have been horrible press. And then you've had all kinds of drama in the community.
Absolutely.
Like the bullet story is you don't get any worse of a headline than that. And so you are seeing, in my opinion, what we are seeing is a degradation of consumer confidence. But sales are coming up, and it is there are some signs there that trouble me, but it's still very much the boom is still very strong, and I still think we have another 20 years of it. But, I don't know if the industry can take any more warehouse collapses.
I don't think so either.
So fix those fucking warehouses.
Amen to that.
Let's not let these precious distilleries get neglected. Put money into them.
Yeah.
But then they have to increase the price of their product.
The double-edged sword. Yeah.
Right.
Well, let's get back to talking about these festivals. We kind of wandered off as we are wont to do.
Yeah.
Well, anything else about Bourbon and Beyond before we move on to Loud Urban Life?
Yeah. So Bourbon and Beyond, we have these incredible seminars. Like we have a seminar like what is a master distiller. Mm-hmm. We have the first seminar on the history of slavery in American whiskey, which was prominent, and people don't like to talk about it. But, there's that. We have a seminar on bourbon disruptors. People are kind of shaking up the industry a little bit. And then you have, a lot of fun things like pairing beer with bourbon, cool. How to make a highball. So it's fun. It's gonna be a very good seminar. A lot of great seminars for all those who have an interest in bourbon and those who don't.
I think that's one of the things that I have always really liked about Bourbon and Beyond is that while it may be a music festival, there's of course that huge component of bourbon with it as well. So everybody gets the opportunity to come and have a good time, regardless of what it is that they enjoy. But then this last one, I think, seems to be the most niche out of all of them.
Yeah, so this is a Louder Than Life is a hard rock festival. It's been going on since 2014, and this is really where Wimmer shines. Like he's got this. This is his genre that they've basically commanded. They are the largest independent rock promoter, and they have Slipknot is the Friday band, is the Friday opener and stand and a day to remember. So if you're into heavy metal, you'll also like Beartooth that day. So there's a lot of great bands there. But Slipknot also just came out with a whiskey, and it's pretty damn good.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, they came out with a whiskey. It's made at an Iowa distillery called Cedar Ridge. It's really quite tasty.
Is that going to be the thing from now on? Is that hard rock bands are just going to be coming out with whiskeys?
Honestly, being on the inside, they're calling.
That's so interesting.
They want to get into the whiskey business because that audience drinks whiskey. They don't necessarily drink. They drink. This audience drinks Jack Daniels.
Sure.
Big time.
Yeah.
And if I'm Jack Daniels, I'm getting a little uncomfortable with these bands starting whiskeys because that. It may not sound like a lot, but if they just start taking away here and there, I would be. I'd say we probably got about another 5 to 10.
That's
bands that would come out with whiskeys.
That's so wild to me.
Yeah, I could see bands that make sense to do whiskeys would be someone like Aerosmith. If Steven Tyler ever wanted to go down that path, I think they would be like a good fit. And a lot of these bands too are sober, and a lot of them will won't have a they'll have someone in the band who still drinks that plays a part in it, like Metallica's. They came out with Blackened.
Yeah.
James Hetfield and Kirk Hammett are both sober.
Mm-hmm.
But Robert and Lars are both, they both partook in it, but they didn't really do anything. They just let Dave Pickrell, may he rest in peace, do his thing, and they kind of approved it. Slipknot, the percussionist Clown, actually did the blending. So I think that's
wow.
Yeah, I think that's fascinating because the whiskey is good.
That's really cool. And nice to hear, too, that it's not just kind of like the outsourcing of work to somebody else. And that is really cool to me, that they actually have a good hand in it.
Mm-hmm. And then Saturday, September 28th, you have who was the biggest band of my generation, Guns N' Roses.
Guns N' Roses.
Yeah.
Wild. With
Godsmack and, you ready for this? Ice Cube, baby.
I saw that and I was like, what happened there? Does Ice Cube do hard rock now?
Well, no. So it's like Ice Cube is hard, and it's like, and when you're putting festivals together, you look at like the audience of the bands and like what they will bring, and that's why Wimmer is such a mad genius when it comes to these, is that this festival lineup is a creation that comes from like countless hours of thinking of who would complement whom, what does it look like, that kind of stuff. It's just this is not easy, obviously.
Oh no.
But the thing is when you see this all take place on stage, you're like, wow. And you've got one stage here, and you got another stage here, and it's like music. And there's no break.
Yeah.
So you got constant, the stage managers are amazing.
This is a huge, I mean, looking at the names of everybody who's going to be there,
mm-hmm.
The headliners are all recognizable names.
Yeah, Sunday you've got Disturbed, Rob Zombie, Marilyn Manson, Breaking Benjamin. And it's just like you just keep going.
Yeah,
it's just an incredible festival, and these are fun.
Yeah. So is there a bourbon component to Louder Than Life?
So the big bourbon bar will still be there. We may have a surprise to announce later on, but I can't talk about it at the moment.
That's fine. Little tease for you there.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Oh, there will also be, there is one cool thing about this festival that will shine, I think, pretty big, is Metallica's Blackened will have a really cool activation there.
Oh, cool,
yeah,
man.
So Metallica, that particular product is not available in stores right now in Kentucky, but it will be, by the time this rolls out.
Very cool. Very cool. Fred, is there anything else you want to say?
Yeah,
about the festivals coming up?
Well, the festivals are kind of, for Bourbon and Beyond, if you use my last name at the checkout, you get a pretty nice discount. So type in Minnick.
Oh, cool.
MINNICK at checkout, and your listeners will get a weekend pass, a general admission weekend pass for $99.
That's great.
Yeah, so I think it's like $75 a day for it.
That's awesome.
But so some other things that I'm doing that are really cool. We're about to launch season 2 of the Amazon Prime show. We're in the middle of editing the episodes there, but I've got some big names like Jeffrey Wright, James Bond actor, and the Golden Globe Award winner. So he's one of my guests. And the magazine, Bourbon Plus magazine, has just been. It's doing really well. It's good. Growing, and we've got a lot of cool. The next story is the next cover story. I'm very excited about because I like eating, and it's about baking with bourbon.
Okay.
So that's actually a lot harder than you might imagine.
Very cool. I want to say one thing before we wrap it up. A few months back, I was rewatching the Bourbon Up episode that you did with Dave Pickerel. Mm-hmm. And I just had this kind of profound moment when I was watching it, realizing how important that interview was and how important I think it will continue to be. And I sent out a tweet from the podcast page that said, after watching this episode again, I see it being as important to bourbon and whiskey drinkers 10, 20, 30 years from now, like watching videos of Stevie Ray Vaughan was for guitar players. For me, as a guitar player too, in the 20th and the 21st century.
Wow.
And I still believe that. I still hold true to that because there was just this candid honesty and this realism of watching you sit down with Dave. Mm-hmm. And it just felt like it was a great timepiece that will continue to shine for years to come.
No, I appreciate that. That interview was fun for the moment, but I think that Dave knew he was going to die when I was talking to him there, because he wanted to talk about his legacy, and that was something that he really needed to get out. And it was I knew he had some health issues,
sure,
and I think he knew that he had kind of crossed that line where there was no return, because he just kept kind of going, and it was very sad. And the one thing that people like to point out in that is that how I disagreed with him on his whiskey and what he thought about it, and I was like, yeah, this isn't that. I don't remember how I put it or what I said, but I have retasted that, and I now have a different flavor in my head, because it was the last thing I ever drank with Dave. So it was and so it has more of an emotional connection to me, and we lost him, and there's no replacing him, and there's an enormous void in the industry, because he was big in stature and in persona.
Yeah. So I just wanted to say that. I didn't mean to bring everything down.
No, that's what we do. We bring it up, bring it down. That's life.
Well, Fred, I want to say thank you so much for coming back on the podcast. It's been fun as always chatting with you.
Absolutely.
I am so looking forward to September and to all these fantastic festivals that you get to go back and enjoy.
One thing, you can get a pass for all 3 festivals, and you can interchange it with people. It's called the Trifesta Pass.
Nice.
So
that's awesome.
You can save a lot of money doing that.
Very cool. So, one more time, Hometown Rising, Bourbon and Beyond, and Louder Than Life, all throughout the month of September. I'll be there. I'll be running around, going to some of the seminars, interviewing some of the folks that are going to be there as well. Had a great time last year, despite the fact that I got rained out on the second day.
Yeah, it was, I think I still got a little PTSD from that. That was, the fallout from that was, tough.
Yeah.
It was, when we got rained out, it was tough, because we worked really hard on this.
Yeah, absolutely.
We worked really hard, and then, and they refunded all the tickets.
They did.
And I just want people to realize, how few promoters do that, So that's the kind of company DWP is.
Yep.
And I remember talking to Wimmer the day after. We're surrounded in mud, and he's out there with a shovel trying to get the drainage going, and he made the decision shortly thereafter that he had to cancel Louder Than Life. And I remember looking at him in his eyes, and he was like, "We're going to come back bigger and stronger." And you know what? I think we have.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think so too. All right. I think that about does it.
Let's rock and roll. See you guys in a few weeks.
Absolutely.
At Bourbon and Beyond.
Thank you, Fred.
Cheers.
My thanks again, as always, to the wonderful Fred Minnick. He is an absolutely superb person to have on the show. Always been very supportive of This Is My Bourbon Podcast and the fun things that we have been doing. I will be, as we kind of talked about, present at not Louder Than Life. I will be present at Hometown Rising and Bourbon and Beyond, as we had kind of talked about already. So if you are planning on being there, please stop by and say hello. We'll be running around all over the place, doing interviews, going to some of the workshops, and doing really cool stuff over there. And those episodes will be coming out in the weeks to follow. So be on the lookout for those as well. We are about done here with this episode. We're just going to wrap it up and let you know where you can find us on the internet. That is at My Bourbon Pod on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. If you're not already following us, please go ahead and do so. We really do appreciate that. That's where we post a bunch of news, stuff that's going on in the life of the podcast. And yeah, it's good stuff. If you would be so kind as to give the show a 5-star rating and review on iTunes, that really does help us out, lets us find new listeners, and gives us the opportunity to branch out and meet new folks. We're always wanting more people to check out the show. It's very important to, continue to grow the audience. You can head to bourbonshop.threadless.com to find all of our apparel and merchandise. We're going to have some new stuff going up there for Bourbon Heritage Month, as well as a sale in honor of Bourbon Heritage Month. So be on the lookout for that. Again, bourbonshop.threadless.com. If you're not yet a part of our Facebook group, you can head to Facebook and search for This Is My Bourbon Group, and we would be happy to add you on, especially if you're a regular listener of the show. There's just some little questions there for you to answer to make sure that you are who you say you are. So, yeah, go and check that out. And then last but not least, patreon.com/mybourbonpodcast. For as little as $1 a month, you can become a supporter of the show. And it really, really does help us out. You get awesome things like bonus episodes. You get to hang out with us via Google Hangouts. You get some live streams just for the folks over there on Patreon. And it's a good time. We really do appreciate it. There is a lot of work that goes into developing and creating and making the show. And, the financial support is something that, not everybody can do, but if you can do it, we really do appreciate it. And it helps us out quite a bit. That does it for this bonus episode. Thanks again to Fred for being on this week. Really looking forward to everything that we've got coming up in the next few weeks. That does it for me. I will see you next week. But until then, I'm Perry, and this is my Bourbon Podcast bonus episode.